sometimes it's about there being a system of checks and balances in your own family and within your own culture. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about being a Black woman, navigating relationships with Black men, and what does forgiveness look like, and what is that balance and difference between forgiveness and enabling. This is going to be a really good conversation, and I'm going to take you all around the world. Well, all around America. Okay. So Beyonce has an album, one of my favorite albums of hers of all time. I don't know why I'm crying. I have been on TikTok, and my mom told me I have to delete TikTok from my iPad. And not my biological mother, me. I'm telling myself I have not been doing the work that I need to do. If I sit and scroll TikTok for hours at a time, I'm getting a whole bunch of different people's energy and their takes. It fucks up my energy and makes me feel bad. I can't do the work that I need to do. Like, it's really negatively impacting my productivity. So tonight, before I go to bed, TikTok has to be deleted from my iPad. I'm not allowed to play anymore because I wasn't playing wisely. Anyway. So I was on TikTok. It's my last day. And I'll still be posting on TikTok. Well, my assistant will post my videos on TikTok. So I'll still be there. I'll still come and check in periodically, like and respond to comments for those of you who are on the TikToker, but I will not be sitting and scrolling and all that. So anyway, I'm on TikTok and I start getting into Black history TikTok. And I went swimming earlier today, and I don't know what it was. The conversations that I've been having, I've been getting a lot of like instant manifestations or it is a manifestation, but typically when we say manifestation, we mean I wanted something and then it manifested in the physical. This is a manifestation, but everything in our physical reality is a manifestation, right? So a lot of things, conversations that I'm having with myself, not out loud, in my own mind, manifestations of that are coming into my physical reality. So I was reminiscing about my time in the South, when I lived in Atlanta, when I was traveling through the South, and all of the experiences that I had. And I just might cry. The reason why I might cry is because we're talking about Black history, and I feel all of these things incredibly deeply, and we will get there in a second. So I'm telling the story. Okay, sorry. Focus, brain, it's all going to make sense. Trust that people understand you and just say what you need to say. Okay. So I was traveling along the South. For those of you that don't know, this was back in like 2020. Yes, in the middle of the global pandemic. I was traveling throughout the South, going live on YouTube, doing readings, making money for food and gas and hotels or Airbnbs as I went along. And I learned so much about Black history and myself and all of that goodness. So one day where was I? I was in Tennessee. Hold on. Okay, I know that was like technically no time for you, but I had to pause the recording to make sure that I was getting my facts and my memory straight, and I am. So I was in Tennessee. I was in Memphis. So when I would drive through the South, I'm driving through Arkansas and I'm driving into Tennessee, right? Geography lesson for those of us that aren't familiar. So Arkansas, there's a town, and that town is called Little Rock. We're not going to talk about the Little Rock Nine, but Little Rock, Arkansas is one of my favorite places in all of America. Every single time I go through the South, I must stop at Little Rock. It's like I don't know if you could call it a tradition, but it is something that I do. Love me some Little Rock, Arkansas. So anyway, I drive through Little Rock, Arkansas, and then I head towards Memphis, Tennessee. There's like a freeway, straight shot basically, right? So Little Rock, Arkansas is in the middle of Arkansas. When I was traveling, the first time that I went across the southern United States, I did not stop in Arkansas because I was really scared. I was like, I don't know anything about Arkansas. I'm just going to drive all the way straight through. So I drove through the entire state of Arkansas, straight shot, did not stop. But then I think, God, I don't remember. I think I didn't stop in Little Rock the first time. I think I saw like in like a freeway sign, like Little Rock this way. And I was like, Little Rock. And I'm like, why does that sound familiar? And I'm like, Little Rock, like the Little Rock 9, like that Little Rock. And it was just like, that was the first time actually. And this is relevant. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but it's relevant. That was the first time that I kind of had a like, whoa, like the shit that we learn about in school, right? When it's in a book, it's a theory. When you see it in real life and you see it in person, it's not just a concept. It's something that is real and it's impactful. So anyway, the first time that I drove through Little Rock, I don't think that I stopped. I think that I recognized it and was like, okay, I don't have plans to stop today. I'm not going to stop today. But when I'm driving back this way, we're going to stop in Little Rock. I'm like 99% sure that that's what happened because obviously I needed to go to the school, to the Little Rock 9 school. Like, fucking duh. What do you mean? So this was actually, that was such a relevant thing. I am going to tell you just a little bit more about that. I went to Little Rock and I went to the high school, and this was during the time of COVID. And my travels during the time of COVID and all of that, it was like divinely guided and so supported by God because I didn't have to listen to the tour guides. And even though I couldn't go into the school or, into like the gas station or whatever, excuse me, I burped. Even though I didn't have like certain guides and different things like that, I really was able to learn on my own and feel the energy of a place and receive messages from the ancestors and receive epiphanies. And as I traveled throughout the South, my social justice desires were awakened in me again. So for you to fully understand this, really quick, I have to take you back in time to when I was a teenager. I have always been really into social justice. I've always had an awareness of racism, and that's just happening all of my life. When I was in the 9th grade, I was on Tumblr and I was a part of the One Direction fandom, naturally. So one thing about being a part of the One Direction fandom is that there was like a code. Like, you had to be a woke bitch. I did not understand what was happening with Palestine and Israel until Zayn Malik tweeted hashtag free Palestine, or was it free Gaza? And there was discussions about it. And I am 13 years old, 14 years old, learning about all of these things, and just like, we're just like getting on board with everything. So I was on Tumblr and I was learning about everything. I was learning about racism. I was learning about systemic oppression, and I was finally able to put a word to the things that I had felt and that I had known and that I had suspected and that I had experienced. And so that was such a beautiful time for me and just like a fabulous awakening for me, right? A social justice warrior. And then as I continued to go throughout high school, I actually organized some Black Lives Matter protests when I was in high school. Very proud of myself, like love her, my baby, except when I was I think I was a senior. Yes, I was a senior in high school. There was another case of, police brutality, and there was like a trial, and the guy basically like got off, right? He was not going to be convicted, blah blah blah. And I remember I was in my mom's room and I was reading the news article. The news had just come out, and I was crying, and in wonderful underdeveloped Capricorn moon fashion, I was like, I cannot do this. I cannot continue seeing the news, seeing what's happening to my people in my country, and being heartbroken every single time there is no conviction. Like, I cannot continue to do this social justice work. I can't focus on it. I was really active in terms of social justice, like in my local town, because of the protests and like the people that I had met. And I just hit this emotional wall, and I was just like, this is overwhelming me. I am tired of crying like this. Like, I am tired of feeling like shit. Like, I cannot do it. And I like closed myself off, and I was just like, this is done. I'm not participating anymore. I'm not getting into it anymore. Like, I cannot do this. And that's really interesting looking back, because I think now, like, oh my God, that was a very Capricorn moon of me. My relationship with my emotions was very different. If you have been following the podcast, or, you know a little bit about my story, then you would know I was not allowing myself to cry until I was 21 years old. It wasn't the summer of 2019. It was like 2019 and 2020 was when I was teaching myself and comforting myself and soothing myself and letting myself know that it's okay to cry. I was someone who held back her emotions a lot. I was somebody who did not cry. It was a very big deal. I went through so much terrible shit, humiliating shit in my life. I did not cry. So me today, I feel emotions, and I'm incredibly sensitive and all of this stuff. And I have a great relationship with my emotions. And so I cry and I express myself freely. But at the time, back when I was in high school, this was a very big deal for me. Like, crying was a very big deal for me, and I was just like, I cannot do this. Like, I cannot handle this. Like, I am experiencing so much pain. I don't want this anymore. So I cut it off. I stopped focusing on the news. I blacked out everything, and I was like, I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna be pre-med. I'm never gonna have to deal with racism ever again. LOL. Little did I know how much, racism exists in the medical field, how much of the medical field is rooted in racism, from the fat phobia to the foundations of gynecology, right? These are things that I didn't really know at the time, or I didn't understand at the time, and all of that stuff, right? I didn't know anything about the Black women's, Black mother, maternal rate in America. I don't know if that's the official title, but anyway, we don't have time to talk about that. So I was just like, eye on the prize. I'm not going to do it. And then I got to college, and it's so funny because even though I was supposed to be like not involved, I was involved in my college. And colleges like to pretend that they're woke, right? So me being involved in college, because I was thinking grad school, even when I stopped being pre-med and I was still focused on English, I was like, I probably will go to grad school because I'm afraid of being an adult, right? So I wanted to make sure that I was making choices and decisions that would have supported me in going to a good grad school. So I was like, participating in all of the college things and being a student leader and like all that shit. So that was very woke. And so I ended up having a lot of conversations about Blackness and all of this stuff. It wasn't the same as when I was in high school and I was like so aware of everything, but it was a kind of like a return, but not, it was not a full on return. And so I started doing my psychic readings and helping people and serving people. And then I left college to come to back home to California to start this business, blah, blah, blah. And I just never got back into social justice in the way that I was when I was a teenager. So when I went to Little Rock, Arkansas, and I stood where those 9 courageous Black girls stood, and I felt and I tapped into that energy, it was the beginning of the end for me. Like, not, okay, the beginning of the end is not the perfect phrase to put there. It was the beginning of, no, I don't want to say the beginning. It was a pivotal moment in my spiritual journey, my business journey, my journey as a human being and a woman, my journey as a leader. This one moment of me being like, Little Rock, Arkansas, Little Rock 9, like, we have to stop by and just see. That moment opened me up, and it's the reason why I ended up in Birmingham, Alabama, and all of these other places, learning about these things, and just like this thirst for knowledge and understanding my own history and uplifting my people, and like such a big fucking part of my purpose. Like, it was just like burst open inside of me, like a light bulb went off inside of me, and it all started with Little Rock, Arkansas. So me and Little Rock have a very beautiful connection and history. Like, I love the Little Rock 9. Obviously, it had an impact on me. I'm a Black girl who went to school in the 2000s, and the schools were, well, I was going to say the schools were not segregated. They were segregated, but you know, we don't have time. We do not even have time to go there. So focus. What's my story? That's it. That was a 2.5. That doesn't even have, well, I mean, yes, you need to understand me and you need to understand my history to really understand what I'm going to be talking about today. I just didn't plan on sharing that with you. So we have that. And there's Little Rock, Arkansas, and then there's a freeway that takes you straight to Memphis. Because I was driving straight through Arkansas, I was going to stop at Memphis, Tennessee. I was always going to stop at Memphis, Tennessee. Now, if you don't know anything about Memphis, Tennessee, Memphis is right on the border of Tennessee. Like, literally, it is the town that you go into if you're entering Tennessee, like through that freeway, right? You're heading into Memphis. So when you're going into Tennessee through this freeway from Arkansas, you drive over a bridge. So there's a bridge and there's a river underneath the bridge. You drive over the bridge. On the bridge is like a banner or whatever. It's like, welcome to Tennessee, the volunteer state. And then once you cross that bridge, you're in Tennessee territory and you're also in Memphis. You know what I'm saying? So I was staying in Memphis, and this trip was really, really interesting because my dad actually visited me. He was alive at the time, and he was there with my cousin Michael, who, interestingly enough, is the only cousin on my father's side that I still really have a relationship and connection with. It's very interesting. And I am going to tell you the story about me and my cousin Michael. We're not really close. We don't really talk. I probably should reach out to him. But okay, you guys know me. I am a bit of a spitfire, okay? I am a woman with strong boundaries. I am a strong woman, and there is a certain kind of energy that only Black women have. And I think different women have this in their own way. Another example that I can give before I fully dive into the Black women example is in the maybe Latina, Latinx community, how they will talk about their mom with the chancla, the shoe. And if you have a Latina mother, not all, of course, we're talking about stereotypes, we're talking about things that are kind of commonly known. If you in general have a Latina mother and she's getting mad at you and upset with you, you're about to get in trouble, she's going to take off her chancla, she's going to take off her shoe, and she's going to hit you with it, she's going to throw it at you. And there's kind of like an energy, right? You know that energy when your mother is really pissed off at you and she's looking at you and she's not saying anything to you, but with her energy, she is communicating to you like, you need to stop it right now because you are approaching very dangerous territory, right? So different women have it. There's different traditions across various cultures where women have a certain strength. It's very much tied to women and mothers, not saying fathers can't have this thing or men can't have this thing, but in general, I'm talking about women specifically. And this is really important because in this episode, we're talking about women's empowerment. So astrologically, I have a Scorpio Mars. I'm a Scorpio rising. I have Mars and Scorpio in my first house. Do I get angry? Boy, do I. Do I get angry? The answer is yes. Don't we all? Like, what do you mean? If you're into astrology or you watch astrology videos and you're watching a video on like Mars and Scorpio, or you're reading an article on like Mars and Scorpio, it's like, they're always like, if there was one person in the world that I would not want to piss off, it's somebody who has Mars in Scorpio. Like, super terrifying energy, anger like you wouldn't believe. One of my favorite astrologers, he says Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio is really terrifying because they will take it farther than you. They will take it to a place that you wouldn't go. There's a certain line of decency. Mars and Scorpio will cross that line if you fuck them over and like make them really, really mad, right? And I'm not saying this in this video to say, oh yeah, I'm a really mad, angry person and blah, blah, blah. No, that's not really how I operate as a person, because not only do I have Mars in Scorpio, but I am a Mars ruled woman. I have a lot of physical power. I have a lot of energetic power. And at some point, especially as a scorpionic energy, especially as somebody who has so much power, you really start to understand that everything does not deserve your energy. Everything does not deserve your response. So we don't have time. We don't have time for us to get into lessons on scorpionic energy. But the point is, the reason why I'm mentioning my Mars sign is because scorpionic energy is always going to be incredibly tied to the family. Whenever I'm seeing scorpionic energy, I'm thinking about 8th house energy. And when I'm thinking about 8th house energy, scorpionic energy, I'm thinking about inheritance. And a lot of times when we're talking 8th house energy, we're thinking inheritance as just money that we pass on. This is true. We do pass on money, but we also pass on characteristics. We pass on ways of being. And something that I have been getting into a lot lately, I actually talked about it. I did a whole video. I had an extended readings membership. And so I did the last 2 extended readings for them. Those are exclusive. You can't join anymore. So if you didn't know about it or didn't join, sorry. And I did this like whole channeled message from the ancestors about honoring your anger. What's my point? My point is that we pass down traits. We pass down anger. I have Mars in Scorpio. My mother also has Mars in Scorpio. The women in my family, the people in my family in general, have a reputation and are known for being a little bit hot-headed. So my family is known for being a little bit, I don't want to say crazy, like crash outs. Okay. Maybe I do have a family of crash outs, and I'm not mad at it at all. I'm not mad at it at all. Okay, so here's a really quick story. Oh shit, I don't know if I can tell this story. Okay, I'm gonna tell this story, and if anybody asks, I didn't tell this story. Okay? Like really quick. I'm gonna tell this story really quick. So, I have a cousin. I don't speak to this cousin. Natalie, how do you know this story? Because my mother told me. And it's the same reason why she doesn't know my business. No offense. Listen, if you, at some point, if you put yourself in a place where the aunties can gossip about your life, Boogie, I'm sorry. That's on you. Anyway, so I have a cousin who I don't talk to. No shade. This is no shade to her. This is not really about her at all. So I have a cousin who I don't talk to. And she was dating this guy. So the guy that she met and was dating comes from the same city that my family is from. Like not like from, but like the city that my parents grew up in, right? So my parents grew up in the same city in Southern California. So my family, my mother's side of the family, well, everybody kind of knows everybody. How can I explain this? Focus on your mom's side. My dad's side's not really relevant to this story. So my mom is one of 9 siblings. They have a big ass family. So everybody in the town knows my family. Everybody in the town that we're from knows the Battles. That's their name, right? It's why I have a capital B tattoo on my foot for battle. So everybody knows the Battles because you probably went to school with one of the Battles. Everybody knows the Battles, right? So long story short, my cousin starts dating this guy who basically is from the same city that our family is from, like the aunts and uncles. This guy, how can I explain this? Okay, so this guy, the guy that my cousin was dating, his dad is like, has an awareness of my family, basically. And when my cousin started dating this guy, and this guy told his dad about this girl that he's dating, I'm sorry, it's not funny. The guy tells his dad about the girl that he's dating and who she is and who her family is. And the guy's dad says to him, oh, the Battles, you need to be mindful, you need to be cutesy, and you need to be fucking demure. Because I know her uncle. And he's a fucking crash out. Obviously, he said it in his own old school, old head way. I'm hearing the story through the grapevine. That doesn't matter. The most important part is my family is notorious. Notorious for a couple of things. Mostly notorious for that motherfucking anger. And so when you have an energy like Mars and Scorpio, you have, somebody who is liable to crash out, basically. And that's not a crime. It's a blessing. And it's a characteristic, the ability to protect yourself and defend your family that has been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years. How the fuck do you think you survived chattel slavery without some form of fucking magic and energy to protect yourself and to protect your family? Either you brought that with you from the mainland, or you developed that, you cultivated it, you grew it, you expanded it, and you passed that shit down to your kids over the course of hundreds of fucking years. My anger is very sacred, and I appreciate it deeply. So I say all of this to say, out of all of my mother's siblings, out of all of the girls, my mother is probably the crash out. She told me she was having a conversation with one of her sisters, and she was like, how many of the other sisters, how many of the other aunts have like cussed out one of the brothers, one of the uncles? And my aunt told her and was like, I think just you. And we really laughed about that because you know what? Yeah. One thing about my mother, especially growing up, she was gonna crash out. she was gonna cuss you out in a way that you've never been cussed out before. These are not healthy coping mechanisms. They are not the coping mechanisms that I resort to. Well, I wouldn't even say that I resort to coping mechanisms. These are not the most emotionally mature communication skills. They are not these skills that I resort to, but they are tools that I have in my arsenal that I am ready, willing, and eager to whip out at any given moment in time. In other words, do not fuck with me. Amen? Amen. So anyway, I'm telling you all of this to say that I've got this anger inside of me, and it's very sacred. And there's a certain experience within culture. There's certain rules and checks and balances that exist within culture that don't get translated into the external world. What do I mean by that? Have you ever had that conversation with people, like similar people within your race? If you're Black like me, maybe the phrase was something like, we don't have conversations like that in front of mixed company. What that means is, if me and my homegirls, we are Black women, we are Black people, if we're having a conversation about Blackness, if we're having an argument about Martin Luther King and da-da-da-da-da, you do that amongst Black people. You do not have a conversation about Blackness and Martin Luther King in front of white people. When people of other races and we'll just say in general, other races and other cultures that are not a part of the that are not members of the African diaspora, when people who are not members of the African diaspora are present, you are in mixed company. There's certain conversations that you do not have. There's certain things that you do not talk about. There's certain things that you do not discuss, that you don't entertain, because you are in the presence of mixed company. Sometimes when you get a little bit too comfortable or a little bit too familiar and you start talking about certain things in front of mixed company or in mixed company, certain members of the mixed company get a little bit too comfortable and they can start kind of talking out of their ass a little bit. And then you're like, oh, I'm sorry, this was not, I can't even be mad at you because I really should have shut up and not said that in front of somebody who's not Black, and that's okay. And it's not about people being bad or wrong or oppressors or anything like that. It's just within culture, there are certain checks and balances. There are certain rules that apply inside of culture and not outside of it. And now I want to tell you about the movie Sinners. I wasn't done telling you about Memphis, Tennessee, but I'll come back and I'll tell you about Memphis, Tennessee. Oh, I think that was just gonna be like a 2.5. Okay, fine. I'll tell you about Memphis and then I'll tell you about Sinners, but don't forget anything that I've just said for the past 5 minutes. Okay. So basically, I'm traveling from Little Rock into Memphis. When I was in Memphis, oh, I was supposed to tell you the story of my cousin Michael. How did you let me go on and on and on about my entire family fucking history? Okay. Sorry, Michael. So the reason why I was saying all of that energy about being a Spitfire and about being a Black woman is because there is the spirit of, like, my spirit, my soul is like of a 99-year-old Black grandmother, like a Black great grandmother. Like, she lives inside of me. Yes, I'm playful. Yes, I'm youthful. Yes, I'm fun. Yes, I have a good time, but I am really, really good at tapping into that Black maternal energy. I'm really, really, really good at it because it's inside of me, it's living inside of me. And maybe we all have this. Some of us have it. We don't tap into it until we have children. I can tap into it really well, really easily. It's an energy that I have inherited from my ancestors. It's an energy that has been used over hundreds of years to maintain this checks and balances. Okay, so this is the perfect setup. It's going to work. So my cousin Michael, I didn't really know him. We were just like friends on Facebook, right? This is when I was like, I don't know, I could have been like 12 fucking years old. Like, that fucking famous Vine or something, and it's like, what are you? You're like 9 years old. She's like, I'm 11, so shut the fuck up. That was me as a little girl. That was me. I was just, I don't know. Shit, you hear the podcast. I was always this. Fuck. I don't know how else to describe it. This is just who I am and how I am and what I am. So let me be that. Anyway, so I was having a conversation with my cousin and he said something and it pissed me off. It's like he said something and he was like being smart, and then I like said something back. Basically, he and I are going back and forth on Facebook. Also, Michael is probably like 20 years older than me. Michael is my cousin on my dad's side, and I am the youngest on of the cousins on my dad's side of the family. So my dad was the youngest child of 5, and he had me. I was his last kid, like 16, 17, 18 years after he had his second child, which is my second oldest sister. So I have second cousins, meaning my cousin's children, that are older than me. So I'm really, really like, I'm the last fucking cousin, okay? On my mom's side, I'm like the third oldest. I mean, the third youngest. I don't know how you would do that. The third from the youngest. There's two under me, right? So anyway, I am one of the youngest of the cousins in my family. So mind you, I'm like 11, 12 years old on Facebook with Michael, who is, I don't know, 20 something, early 30s. I don't fucking know how old he is. But he and I are going back and forth with each other. Because who the fuck are you talking to? And I don't remember why I was mad at him. I don't remember why he pissed me off. But basically, I set him straight in that fucking Facebook. And I was really mad and I didn't like him. And Michael was just like my fucking op, basically. But apparently that like ended. I don't know. It was just like, I never saw him. We never connected. But he's like a super cool guy, right? So something happens with Michael and I'm like 11, 12 years old and I basically fucking check him and I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to like this, right? So I didn't say that. I was 11 or 12 years old. Like I had a smart mouth, but I was smarter than that, you know? So anyway, so he and I like don't connect. We don't see each other. I don't spend a lot of time with my father's side of the family. So something happened. My father was in Georgia. I was traveling the South. My father was in Georgia for the time, and he was coming back to California with my cousin Michael. So they were driving from Georgia to California. While they were driving from Georgia to California, for those of you that don't know, they were going from the east southern United States west towards California. And I was going from West California in the United States to east. I was just going east. I was just south and east, okay? So I was moving in the direction of Georgia, but I wasn't heading towards Georgia. So my parents obviously know that I am on the road. I'm like 20 years old at this point. I might have been 21. I was probably 21. I don't know. I'm 20 something. So I was on the road and my dad is basically like calling me like, hey, like, we're going through Georgia right now. I mean, not Georgia. We're going through Tennessee right now. We're going to be going through Memphis. Like, let me know where you are. Give me the give me the address to your Airbnb so we can come, like, you know, pull up, just say hi, whatever. So Michael and my dad get there to come see me in Memphis. And when Michael sees me, he obviously only has like one impression of me. We've only really talked like one time. I've only seen him like a handful of times, like all my life. And he said something about he was going to go to California to see his second girlfriend. And then he like cut himself off, like trying to cut me off. And he was like, don't worry, they know about each other. Like, basically, in this conversation that he was having with me, he was saying things that obviously in my mind, I'm going to be thinking, this is not integrity. This is not good. He's assuming that I'm going to say some shit to him, that I'm basically like going to get on him for like being a cheater and all this stuff. And so he cuts me off. He's like, before you even start, diva, they know about each other. This is ethical polygamy, sister. And it's very funny because in this way, I have taken on this ancestral role of kind of like a mom. Not like he sees me as his mother and we have conversations and like different things like that. It wasn't more than this one conversation, but the dynamic from a argument on Facebook like a decade prior, the dynamic was the same. Natalie Hughes is not a girl that fucks around. She's very serious and she doesn't play that shit. And I don't know what the fuck we were arguing about. I have no fucking clue. But why were you arguing with a 12-year-old little girl? But also, I understand. Like, I know me. I get it. I probably would have argued with me too. Well, no, I would have loved and adored me, but like, I understand. So anyway. So there is like a precedent before this conversation, and the way that I had treated him when I was 12 it influenced the way that he assumed that I would treat him as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old young woman. I was the same person, but he was a little bit not defensive. It wasn't like a defensive thing. It was kind of like a playful thing, but it was kind of like, okay, mom, like, don't yell at me. Like, I'm doing the right thing. Like, they know about each other. Like, it was just kind of like silly. But this is one example, and I'm going to give the sinner's example right when I finish talking about Memphis. So no, I'll finish talking about Memphis later. For now, we'll tell you about Michael. So that is one example of there being checks and balances within a culture that you do not bring to other people. There are certain checks and balances that happen within a family that you do not necessarily involve outside people with. We're going to talk about the nuances of this, and we're going to talk about how to make sure that you can have that natural checks and balances without people being unsafe or murdered. And a really great movie that does this so beautifully, illustrates this masterfully, is the movie Sinners, which is written and directed by Ryan Coogler. I am a fan of Ryan Coogler. Obviously, I watched Black Panther back when I was in college, when it was coming out in the theaters, and I loved the movie, but I didn't know who directed it at the time, but goodness gracious, I loved everything about Sinners. So one thing that you see playing out multiple times in Sinners is this checks and balances that exist within culture that other people are not necessarily invited to participate in. There are things that we handle inside of our home that we do not necessarily invite outside forces that might escalate the issue, outside forces that might make things worse, outside forces that might respond too drastically, right? We do not necessarily invite outside external sources to handle shit that is going on inside of our home, okay? So there's a couple different examples of this throughout the movie. Number one, I am going to give a little bit of a spoiler, but like, watch the movie for the experience, and I'm not really talking about a lot of the plot, okay? I'm really just talking about characterization and setting. So you have two characters, they're twins. One is Smack, yeah. One is Smoke, and the other twin is Stack. And Smoke and Stack are gangsters. They are these twins who are known far and wide. They are gangsters. You do not fuck with them. You hear about them, you feel afraid. They are very notorious, right? So one part of the movie, kind of beginning part of the movie, they're getting ready to set up a juke joint. One of the twins drives to a local store to get some supplies and support for the juke joint. Now, this twin has a cart that has a whole bunch of like Irish and like Italian beer or something like that, right? So he's got this truck that has stolen goods in it. They're going to sell the goods, right? The truck is very valuable. But he has to leave the truck outside in order to go talk to the people inside. So he gets out of the truck and he goes up to a little black girl. And when I say a little black girl, I mean probably like 11, 12, 13, 14, a young black lady. Yeah, young black girl, a black girl. I don't really understand how to call. Anyway, so he goes up to like kind of like this young, like black, like preteen young lady. Perfect. And he says, "Hey, do you know the twins?" And she's like, "Yeah, I know the twins. I've heard of them." And he's like, "Good. I'm one of the twins." And she's like, "Oh my fucking God." Like, thinking she's going to be in trouble. Like, what's going on, blah, 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 right? She's like, obviously panicked because of the stories that she's heard. He says, "Listen, I have a job for you. I'm going to help you to make some money." So he hires this little black girl to sit in the truck and honk the horn if anybody is looking at the truck too long, getting too suspicious, fucking around the truck, right? The little black girl is the queen of watching over this truck. Now, the little black girl says, "Okay, I'll do it." He says, I'm making this up, I don't remember the exact script. He says, "Okay, I'll give you 10 cents for it." She says, "Okay, I'll take the 10 cents. He says, "No, you won't. We're talking numbers." And he teaches this young black girl who, remember, this is 1930s Mississippi. Like, how many opportunities would you as a young black girl get to learn how to negotiate? And who is telling you directly or indirectly that you as a little black girl should ever be negotiating for more money? Like, that was one of the best scenes that I had ever saw, because there's a beautiful juxtaposition between his characterization as a man who is a thug. He is a hardened criminal. But within culture, within community, there is a certain code. There is a certain expectation. There are things that you do and there are things that you don't do. I say shit like this all of the fucking time. There are things that you do and there are things that you just don't do. Honoring and respecting little black girls is obviously a part of this twins code, right? So I want to say this is Smoke. So I'm just going to say Smoke. And if I'm wrong and it's actually Stack, then fuck it. Watch the movie and figure it out your damn self. But I'm pretty sure it was Smoke based on the character and everything I'm about to say. So anyway, there's negotiations and he's like, I say, I can give you 10. What do you say back to me? You say a number back to me. She's like, well, give me 11. He's like, I can give you 12. She's like, give me 15. He's like, I can give you 12. She's like, give me 13. He's like, I'll give you 12.50 or something like that, And then she's like, okay, yes. And she's like, happy because she has negotiated successfully. She's getting money. She's getting more money than she expected. She's having a positive interaction with this man. This is the first time, one of the first times, because it's the beginning of the movie, that we get this characterization of Smoke as a man who does have character. The car is full of stolen beer. So there's certain laws and there's certain rules that it's okay to break. But even criminals, even inside of a gang, we still have rules. There are things that you do and there are things that you don't do. So we continue with the story. So basically, Smoke goes into the shop and is saying, hey, I need this. We're opening up a juke joint. What's up? We're back in town. Whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. Then he hears the horn going off. He's like, oh shit, somebody's fucking with my truck. So he comes out and I'm pretty sure he gets his gun out, whatever. He comes out and then the little girl's like, they're stealing from your truck. And so there's two guys there and Smoke recognizes one of the guys that's stealing from the truck. And Smoke is like, Benny, I don't know the guy's name. Smoke is like, Benny. Benny's like, Smoke. I had no idea you were in town. The little girl's like, he's fucking lying. I told him it was your truck. Oh my God, I love this movie. So anyway, so then the guy, obviously seeing smoke in the flesh, is like, okay, like, I'm so sorry. I didn't even know that it was you. Like, hey, like, everybody, like, let's really just chillax. Like, everything is okay. And Smoke ends up shooting the guy. He doesn't shoot him in the chest. He doesn't shoot him in the head. He doesn't shoot him and kill him, but he like shoots him like through his knee, basically, right? And then he shoots the other guy. No, he shoots the first guy in his ass, right? Because the guy turns around to run away and he like shoots him in his ass or something like that. Or you have to watch the movie because I feel like I'm chopping the scene up a little bit. It's really funny. It's really good. I cannot ruin it. Immediately I saw it, I was like, oh my God, the Tarantino influence is sick. So good. So beautifully executed. We do not have time for you to be a film crazy girl. Okay, so anyway. So he like Smoke shoots the one guy in the ass, and then the accomplice guy gets shot in the knee. And they're basically like, what's going on? Like, you shot me in my ass. Like, what is going da 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 da? And basically Smoke is like, listen, I cannot have you walking around here. I cannot have anybody saying that they stole from me and they just walked away with nothing to show for it. Like, I can't do that. That's not right. That's hurting my reputation. Like, I feel you. I feel for you. Unfortunately, you did me wrong. This is the rule. This is the law. There are things that you do and there are things that you do not do. Now, this is a beautiful example. I have two examples from the movie. This is the first one. This is a beautiful example of there are certain things that you do within culture that you might not necessarily do. No, sorry, let me say that again. There are certain rules and there are certain ways of being. There are certain checks and balances within culture that you do not involve other people in. And it can be for the safety and security and preservation of people. So think about it in this scene. Hold on, I'm not finished telling the story. So he shoots the guys. Then he goes back into the store to finish up his deal. Everything is good. His truck is good. He's fine. The guys are outside. They're hollering because, of course, they've been shot. They need a doctor. So Smoke is talking to the guy inside of the store and is like, hey, do you still know that doctor? Here, let me give you some money. These people need to get patched up. They're going to be fine. They just need to basically see a doctor, get some stitches, da 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 da. Smoke does not shoot them and leave them to die on the side of the street. Even though they probably weren't going to die, he purposefully shot them, but he didn't shoot them like fatally. He did not leave them to die in the middle of the street. He did not say, I don't care about you. I don't care about your well-being. We're seeing this characterization of this man, such an emotionally complex character. And this is true for a lot of us that grew up, we can say in Black neighborhoods, or maybe in the hood, or maybe, I don't want to say in gangs because I've never been in a gang, so I don't know what it's like to be in a gang. But that's what it immediately reminded me of. I'll talk more about that later. But the point that I'm making is that the character, Smoke, pays money so that these guys can have a doctor, so that these guys are okay. There's a code of conduct here. They didn't steal too much from him. They had a great conversation. He knows them. He did what he needed to do to preserve his reputation. And at the same time, we're seeing that he is a good guy for all intents and purposes. You know, it would have been a different story. He would have been characterized differently had he shot those guys and then left them on the side of the road and was like, fuck you, figure it out yourself. I got a juke joint to open up. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's those little things. We're seeing this complex world that is being built out. There are checks and balances. Was Smoke, with his truck full of stolen shit, gonna call the police? In 1930, 30s, deep, deep, deep fucking South, was he gonna say, you stay right there, I'm calling the police because they're gonna come and get you and throw you in jail? No. What was gonna happen to a black man in 1930s, the deep fucking South, Mississippi, if he had been caught stealing? A lot worse. A lot worse would have happened to him than a bullet in the ass or a bullet through the kneecap. Not fun, not good. We don't like it. We don't want to see more of it. But there's a check and balances within culture that does not rely on external services. Why? Because the external services, the police in this example, would have made the situation worse. Now, I, as a black man, have created a KKK rally for my fellow black man after he stole from me. Did the black man who was trying to steal something, did he do something wrong? Yes. Did he act out of integrity? Yes. Should there be consequences for his actions? Yes. Should the consequences of his actions have been being lynched and tarred and feathered and blah, 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 blah? Hell fucking no. So when I cannot rely on the police to serve what I believe to be justice and to demonstrate the consequences that your actions have when you hurt somebody within community, if I cannot rely on external influences, on external quote unquote support, what am I going to do? I have to establish internal checks and balances that exist within a culture. We are going to talk about relationships in today's episode, but I'm setting this up so fucking beautifully. Like, Diva, I feel like you're already understanding it. If you're not already understanding it, that's okay, because I'm going to make it super plain, but like, this is the perfect fucking setup. So that happens in the movie. That's an example of checks and balances. We have a doctor that we call. He's going to get patched up. He's not going to go to jail. He's not going to be lynched. But at the same time, he's going to get the message that it is not okay to behave in this way. It is not okay to steal from me. Period, point blank. We got everything that we needed. Boom. Next. The next scene in the movie, well, not the next scene in the movie, but the next example that I'm going to give from the movie is when everybody is inside of the juke joint. So it's like a party, it's like a club, right? So there's a whole bunch of black people there. They've got the stolen liquor there. They've got the music there. They're gambling in one of the back rooms. Like, they're having a good fucking time. Now, something happens back in the gambling room. They're playing like a dice game where you're rolling the die. Depending on what you roll in the die, you either win the money, you lose the money, whatever. So a fight kind of starts to break out in the gambling room. And one of the twins, I don't remember which one it is, but one of the twins, one of the main characters, oh no, I do remember. Okay, so it was Smoke again. So Smoke gets called back into the gambling room and they're like, Smoke, this guy's cheating. He has his dice and they are, like, basically they've been fucked with so that it always rolls like 7 or whatever. And so, they like go into the guy's pocket. They like find like the fucked up die. And it turns out that he really did cheat. He really was being dishonest. He really was stealing money. So everybody in the juke joint is mad. And you have this incredibly like unsettling scene, but it's so beautifully orchestrated, choreographed, blocked, directed. The music and the visuals are like, oh my God. So I recommend watching the movie. But long story short, they start kicking this guy's ass, right? They're jumping the guy who was cheating in the gambling room or whatever. So they're punching the guy and they're kicking the guy and they're like really beating the guy's ass. I don't think that they're murdering the guy because they have guns. And if they wanted to shoot the guy, if they wanted to kill the guy for cheating, they could have killed him. But they didn't. They beat his ass. And you got to think about the context. There are certain checks and balances that exist within culture. There are certain checks and balances that exist within your family unit. And you don't necessarily involve people outside of that because they're going to make the situation worse, because you can't trust them, because you can't rely on them. What are you going to say? You're going to call the police? I don't know if the juke joint was a legal thing. I mean, they owned the property. Do they need permits? Were the police going to come in and see the beer? If they had called the police because this guy was cheating at the dice game, that could have ended up being more trouble than it was worth, right? At another part in the movie, the white characters, the vampires outside, there's a group of vampires outside, and they're trying to get inside of the juke joint. And one of the twins is like, hey, maybe we should let him into the fucking juke joint. They have money to spend. They want to dance too. They got the little fucking guitar fucked up Jimmy Crack Corn and I Don't Care song. Like, fuck it. Like, why don't we just let him inside? And the other twin is like, yeah, it's fine until somebody in here looks at their woman a little bit too long, or somebody in here steps on their shoe, or somebody in here does something to assault them. And suddenly that power imbalance is weaponized against the people that are inside of this juke joint to have fun and to be free and to let loose and to release, right? The stress that they're experiencing from being sharecroppers and just being fucking black in the deep South. You know what I'm saying? So they don't let them into the juke joint. Why? Because the juke joint is this sacred space. It's like a fucking bubble. There are certain things that happen within culture, and we do not have certain conversations, and we do not do certain things in mixed company because of history, because of what can happen. There is a difference when it's two black men that are seen as equals and they're getting into an argument and they're getting into a disagreement. It's a whole other thing if there's a white man who now feels scorned and can weaponize his privilege and turn an entire town and turn several states and turn an entire country against this entire group of black people and their families, right? So what happens when you're gambling in the juke joint? Oh my God, this episode is going to be so fucking long, but that's okay because I feel like it's really, really good. And if you're listening for this long, rate this 5 stars on Apple Podcast and on Spotify and send me an email and tell me that you love my analysis on everything, because this is all so important. And I'm going to get to the point. We're going to talk about relationships, but I want to talk about what the fuck I want to talk about. And it's my podcast. And we have not talked in like several weeks at this point to like, let's just chit chat as girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? Like, let me get to the point when I get to the point. So anyway, here's the point. There's gambling inside of the juke joint. I don't think that gambling was legal. I don't know. But there's gambling happening inside of the juke joint. Somebody is cheating. That's something that you don't do. There are certain rules, even though we have stolen beer. Even though we're having this party and we may not be legally allowed to congregate in this way, even though it may not be of the highest, like, morals and ethics for us to be gambling. The title of the movie is Sinners. People living a life of sin, dancing, fornicating, listening to blues music, you know, even though we have sinned, even though we have stolen, even though we cheated the Irish, Even though we cheated the Italians, even though we break some rules, there are still certain things that you do not do within culture. Otherwise, there are consequences. And I'm not going to seek out external support to assist with these consequences, because their consequences for you might be too extreme for the crime that you have committed against our community, right? I'm not going to call the KKK on a black man in 1932 fucking Mississippi Delta, knowing that he is likely going to get lynched because he used some rigged dice in our illegal gambling game. I'm not going to kill him over that. But am I going to beat his ass? Yes. Am I going to beat his ass to the point where he understands you don't ever do some shit like this ever again in your fucking life? Yes. And that is internal checks and balances. Beyonce means no violence. Nath Hughes means no violence. If you guys are Beyonce fans and you know that video, then you probably laughed. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. Let's move on. The point is, I'm not saying that you should go and beat people's ass instead of calling the police. I am using this as a metaphor to make my point, which is there are certain ways of being in relationships. There are certain things that you do instead of resulting to one measure, you do something else because it's in-house, in culture. So now we're going to talk about, it's not relevant for us to talk about. I want to talk about Mississippi so bad, but my talk about Mississippi is kind of like a ghost story. So I will tell you guys about Mississippi in another episode. We don't have time for me to finish talking about not Mississippi. Well, the story is about me in Memphis, and it involves the Mississippi River. I will tell that story at another time because we don't have time to finish it. So let's just drop that thought off where it is. Okay. Beyonce song. In the beginning, I was referencing a Beyonce song from the album The Gift, which is literally the album that I was listening to nonstop while I was traveling through the South. So all of this coming together in the way that it is in my own fucking mind is blowing me, girl. It's fucking blowing me. Anyway, not blowing me like how New Yorkers say it's blowing me, like it's blowing me like it's blowing my mind. Okay, focus. So Beyonce has a song on the album The Gift, and the song is titled Bigger. And in the lyrics, she says, forgiveness is key because we're fighting something so much bigger. Forgiveness is key because we're fighting something so much bigger. And she kind of references a little bit throughout the album her relationship with Jay-Z and what we know about her relationship with Jay-Z, which has been confirmed through the albums like 444, Lemonade, and The Carters, the joint album that Beyonce and her husband did together. We know what we know based on that music, that artistry. She references this a little bit inside of The Gift when she says things like, forgiveness is key because we're fighting something much bigger. And then in the album, she also says something like, she's referencing herself and she says, she references herself and she says something about being tired, or she says something about, I'm still trying to be a good wife. It's still really hard, I can't lie, but for you, I'm trying. So she's talking a lot in her music about her relationship with Jay-Z and his almost infidelity. Because based in the music, he says he never had sexual intercourse with that woman. But was he sending text messages and doing things that he obviously should not have been fucking doing? Yes. So we'll say Jay-Z's almost infidelity and how that created this hole in their relationship, or a wound, I'll say, a wound in their relationship and their healing process as a couple and their healing process as a family, and how they didn't just heal them together, but they healed and it impacted their family line. And so one of these lyrics, she says, forgiveness is key because we're fighting something much bigger. And the way that has been in my mind lately, coming up for me lately, can't tell you why. I'm psychic. We know better than to question it. But this energy, forgiveness is key because we're fighting something so much bigger. As I sat going through TikToks and hearing about things that our ancestors collectively went through and different recordings, not like audio recordings, but like accounts, like written word stories, different stories of people. And there was one story of an enslaved woman and an enslaved man, and I believe they had a child. And the man was sometimes given permission to go over to be with his wife, the woman that he loved, and their child. And sometimes he would sneak over to be with them, even when he hadn't been given permission from his enslavers. So in the story, they were saying how he got caught, was hiding in a chimney or something, and then he got caught, and then obviously suffered incredible physical assault and abuse. Lashings, I believe, was how they described it. And that story just hit me in my chest. And we've talked about this a little bit before, maybe just on my platform in general. This conversation about families being ripped apart and the consequences of slavery, the trauma that lives inside of us, and the ways that we, as Black people, as the descendants of enslaved people, the way that we behave as a consequence of that. That just, it hit me in a different way. And then that line of forgiveness is key because we're fighting something much bigger hit me at the same time. It just started aligning and it started making sense. And then we get into this conversation about checks and balances. So there's this guy who I've talked about him on so many fucking podcast episodes. Either I'm going to marry this guy, or this is the biggest fucking lesson from the universe that I can't even fucking imagine. I don't know. 2 options. I'm either going to learn the lesson of a fucking lifetime, or me and this man are getting married. I don't fucking know. Stay tuned. We'll find out together, You'll find out before me, probably. I'm just kidding. So anyway, there's this guy, and what can I say? I have so much compassion for him, and I have so much understanding, which is, I guess, the same as compassion. I have compassion, I have understanding, I have empathy, right? I understand why he did the things that he did in our connection. And for a really long time, and I've made episodes about this, right? For a really long time, I was trying to reconcile in my brain, like, how do I allow this guy into my life? Am I scripting? Am I manifesting this guy into my life after he disrespected me in the way that he did? And what about that? And it just feels so wrong for me to allow this guy into my life, but should I even allow him back into my life? Because self-worth and everything on social media says just focus on yourself and let that shit go, and when you see red flags you should run away from them. And I'm like, I think that I'm evolving. What I'm understanding from an ancestral perspective and point of view is that when it comes to certain shit, there is a certain amount of leeway and understanding that you give to certain people as a consequence of not just their own lived experience, but as a consequence of their ancestral lived experience. And that means sometimes people are going to do shit that hurts your feelings. And sometimes forgiveness is key because we're fighting for something much bigger. We're fighting against something much bigger. Now, let me say this. This is the part where we get even further into the nuances. Because before I was willing to forgive him at this level and to be in such a clear place energetically within our connection, I had to reconnect with my own anger. And I think what I think in my own mind is that in his head, consciously or subconsciously, a part of him knows, probably very consciously, that the next time that he speaks to me, it is unlikely that I will respond to him with kindness because of who I am. Go back and listen to the beginning of the episode if you forgot. I sat with myself because I pray. I pray a lot about this connection. I pray a lot about everything, right? Whenever I'm feeling confused, God, help me to see things differently. Help me to see things differently. I don't understand. Because I feel in my heart and in my soul that this is my person. In a way that makes absolutely no sense. In a way that is very psychic. And I'm trusting my intuition more and more. And when I honored my anger, and when I sat with myself, and I was like, I don't want to cut this guy off. I want to cuss him the fuck out. Because I feel like he thinks that he can play with me, you know? When I had that conversation with myself, and I had that realization with myself, I said, Yeah, I'm not going to cut him off. I'm going to cuss him out. And then we can live happily ever after. And that shifted something in me. And I actually, like, it soothed my anger in a way. Like, I was so angry with him because of what he did, and I didn't allow myself to feel how angry I was in his fucking mind, or maybe even in his dreams. He probably had a really bad week last week. I'm not saying I want him to have a bad week. I'm just saying, because for a good couple of days, every single time that I thought about him, I saw myself ripping his head off from his body. Because I was really mad. Because he really pissed me off. But I don't want him to die. I would like for his head to stay where it is, where it belongs. But energetically speaking, it needed to get ripped off, But what's my point? My point is, I honored my fucking anger. And I honored my fucking feelings. And I honored those feelings of betrayal. And I, integrated this angry part of me that exists for such a strong, powerful fucking reason. As a Black woman, as Black women, you have a certain power. As a matriarch, as a woman, you have a certain power to create a certain check and balance in your own family unit, within your own culture. When women are not connected to their anger, when women are not connected to their power, when women are not connected to their ability to protect and defend themselves and their family, you fucked up shit like patriarchy. And everybody talking about women are so much weaker compared to men. Men are physically stronger. Yes, this is true. Men are typically, and in general, physically stronger than women. But women are psychically and emotionally and spiritually stronger than men. Checks and balances. Do not fuck with a spiritual fucking lady. Do not fuck with a woman who is spiritually fucking powerful. So, there's a lot on social media that is very much like, if it's a red flag, you have to cut them off immediately. If they do something fucked up, you have to cut them off immediately. Why are you still there? Because you have low self-worth. Because and it's not inherently untrue. Sometimes you stay in a connection because you have low self-worth and you don't believe that you deserve better. And if that's true, then you deserve to be met with compassion and you deserve to be supported as you heal that, period, full stop. However, shit is not black and white. And that is not always the reason that you stay in connections with people. Just because you stay in a connection with someone, just because you grow and expand with someone, does not mean, oh, you have low self-worth and d. I'm understanding Beyonce in a deeper way than ever before. Because I've seen tweets and it's like, oh, I love this song from Lemonade, and somebody else will quote it and be like, you should not want your love story to feel like anything from Lemonade. Or it'll be a tweet like, I love the song Love on Top by Beyonce. This is what I want my romance to be. And somebody else is like, listen to the lyrics. Like, these lyrics fucking suck. And like, finally you put my love on top. He was neglecting you at first and And it's like, okay. One thing that I have learned firsthand is that it's incredibly easy to judge people. It's incredibly fucking easy. I've done it. Trust me. I know. I'm a Capricorn moon with a Scorpio rising and an Aries stellium. Trust me, motherfuckers. I know how easy it is to judge people. I know how I know how easy it is to judge people. I am as judgmental as they come. And one thing that I'm learning through my life experience is that it's not right to judge. And like, we know this, right? But I'm understanding it deeper. I'm like embodying the shit. It's not just an idea anymore. I'm getting it and I'm understanding it. Sometimes you did not choose. You did not wake up and say, I want to find a man and fall in love with that man and get married to that man and commit to that man and give my all to that man. And then have that man plan and plot on cheating on me and then leave that man and then have that man follow me all over the fucking world trying to get his family back, and then we're going to come back together, but then we have to heal all of the shit that came up, and I'm going to be born to parents and in a family system where my mother is being cheated on repeatedly, routinely by my father. Like, we do not, I'm talking like this is Beyonce's story, right? From my understanding. We are not fucking born thinking, this is what I want. This is what I'm so fucking happy to have. We don't want this. But we are walking out the normal and natural consequences of our ancestors' lived experiences, our families' lived experiences. I was not taught how to feel emotions and how to love in a healthy way. My parents were together, but they weren't together for my entire life. They had an on-again, off-again relationship, and I swore that I never wanted to be my parents. But now, as an adult, knowing myself and knowing both sides of my family and my ancestors, I see why me as my soul chose both of my parents, and there's like a harmony between both sides of my ancestry, and I am so incredibly fucking blessed and gifted and talented, and those two family lines had to come together to become one to create me, and like that harmony between ancestors and that harmony between spirits, like it's so beautiful and it's so sacred. And like, my parents were on again and off again, but my father was addicted to crack cocaine as a consequence of fucking the government purposefully sabotaging Black communities. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? The addiction and the relationship problems and the family not being together and whole and healthy and safe and secure being a consequence of hundreds of years of enslavement, and before the fucking enslavement, fucking indoctrination into Christian religions in an effort to like fucking colonize and control the minds. Like, I am living out the consequences of hundreds of fucking years of bullshit, of trauma and hurt and of pain. And I'm not the only one. And I know this guy. And I know his family. In a very spiritual way. We don't have time. This is already almost 2 hours long. We don't have fucking time to go into that. I wouldn't go into that regardless of how much time we had. But I fucking understand. Forgiveness is key because we're fighting something much bigger. Who the fuck are we? This one life, this one woman, this one generation, in comparison to hundreds of fucking years of bullshit, the way that our ancestors lived and the relationships that they chose and the people that they chose to be with and the ways that they allowed themselves to be treated and the abuse that they endured for a lot of fucking time. I heard stories and I looked back on the shit and I was just like, I can't believe they would do this. I can't believe you would accept this. That's absolutely crazy. Da 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 da. No, I fucking get it. Because I was looking at shit as if they had just fallen out of a coconut tree, but they didn't. They existed within the context of all of the bullshit that came before them. And for people who experienced a lot of fucking bullshit, they were given lemons and they made lemonade. And that is the story of my fucking people as a collective. Across the diaspora, you know what I mean? Shouldn't have happened, not okay that it happened, and there's still beauty within that. I had to stop looking at my life and my relationship from the lens of a textbook about psychology or a textbook about attachment or a textbook about relationships. And I've started to understand that there's nuances. And if I didn't make it obvious with me talking about my anger at the fucking beginning, I am not a woman who is to be played with. I'm not talking about, oh, this guy, like, maybe he had a terrible week last week. I don't know what kind of week he had. I don't know. And that was really, it was a joke. But real men in my life who have done really fucked up, horrendous things to me, they are not doing so good. Because I am incredibly powerful. And it might not always be a police report being filed, but there are checks and balances that exist within culture and within family. And if you, as a woman, are in a relationship, are in a connection with a man, and you feel in your heart and in your soul that this is your person and this is who you're meant to be with, and this is who your ancestors are pointing you in the direction of, listen. Because we're not playing a game about theory. We're now having a conversation about embodiment. This is upper level shit. This is not, I had a conversation with ChatGPT and ChatGPT told me that we're supposed to be together. I'm not judging you if you did. I'm not saying that it's bad or wrong or anybody's unworthy of love. That's not the confirmation. This is not, I saw 333 and 444, so we're meant to be together. This is not that. I mean, you are at a place in your life where you have a relationship with your angels and your ancestors and your guides, and the guidance that you receive yields you real life positive results. And your conversation with your ancestors, your conversation with your spirit guides, your conversation with your family, your conversation with their spirit guides and angels and ancestors and family. In that conversation, There is a conversation between you and all of the spiritual teams, and everybody is in agreement. This is your person. This is where the two of you need to be, right here and right now. That's what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about the guy that I think I'm supposed to be with because a tarot reader told me that he was my soulmate. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not saying you can't watch tarot to get confirmation. I love a good tarot reading. I do tarot readings. I'm not saying that. But I'm talking about your relationship with yourself. On this spiritual journey, you are cultivating a relationship with self. And anything that you are doing, whether it's your romantic relationship or it's your career, it's your money, it's your finances, it's your life purpose, whatever it is that you are doing, it needs to be coming from you at the end of the day. You need to feel that shit inside of you. It has to be a knowing that you have, that you trust, that you are walking in. Not because somebody else said. So when you're in a connection with someone and you have clarity and a certain conviction, not coming from your inner child who's 2 years old and feeling abandoned. How do you know the difference? You go through it and then you feel the difference. That's a whole, we'll have another conversation. We'll do another episode. More episodes to come. Because I've been learning so much lately. When you have a connection, that is happening within culture. And I'm really being vague because it could be Black culture, but you could be Latina. And you could be having an experience within your culture. You could be moving through something intergenerational in your family. I'm not saying everybody has to be with their same culture. That's a whole other conversation for a whole other time. I don't really do the interracial dating thing. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing against, nothing bad. Nobody is unworthy of love for whoever they love or whatever they choose. But I'm talking about being with a Black man and our kind of shared family history is something that's incredibly relevant to our connection. So you take that and you make that fit however it needs to fit for you. Maybe it's intergenerational shit that was going on within your family. Maybe it's shit that you've seen within your culture, yada, 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 right? You do that part, okay? You be the leader of your mind and your life. You talk to your ancestors about it. Within that connection, there is a certain culture and there is a certain family and there are certain checks and balances that exist. And you don't necessarily bring that to external sources. Meaning, sometimes you stay in the relationship because you know and you understand your ability to create a happy and healthy and healed relationship instead of walking away from the connection. And at the same exact time, you have a relationship with your own personal power, with your own strength, with your own anger, with your own ability to set boundaries and protect yourself. And when you have that connection to that power, you can then move past certain mistakes. And I'm trying to be very careful with what I say here because I don't know what the boundaries are. You know, like in my case, I'm not talking about a guy who like hit me or something, you know? In my case, I'm talking about a really fucked up miscommunication. What we really can call a mistake that we don't have the time to get into the nuances of. I don't feel that I'm in a connection with a man who is a narcissist. You know what I'm saying? So don't listen to this episode and say, well, Nath Hughes is in a similar connection and it sounds like me, so I'm gonna da 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 da. Like, no. You have your own mind, you have your own spirit team, you have your own support. If you need to get your own therapist, like you do what you need to do to make sure that you are safe and secure. I never want a woman to be in a connection where she feels unsafe and she feels insecure. In this connection, even though things have been unfolding between the two of us for what feels like a very long time, I still take care of myself. I still feel safe and secure within myself. 9 times out of 10, minus the moments of me honoring my anger and ripping his fucking head off, 9 times out of 10, I feel okay and I feel good. I feel good. I'm good and able to process and regulate my own emotions. So even if he doesn't show up in the way that I want a man to show up, I'm still okay. I'm still okay in my business. I'm still okay in my life. I'm still okay functioning as an adult. I don't feel codependent on this connection. This connection does not take away my sense of self. This connection does not require me to let go of my boundaries. Being codependent and letting go of my boundaries would be like, it's okay. It's totally okay. The fucked up thing that you did is actually okay. And I was never mad and I was never upset, right? That would be codependent. That would be me trying to be a people pleaser just to be in a relationship with the guy. That's not what our dynamic is like at all. That's not what goes on between the two of us energetically at all. I have a very strong sense of self-worth. I'm very clear about what I want. I'm very clear about what I desire. I'm very clear about the behavior that I find to be acceptable and unacceptable. And he and I both know that I'm going to communicate that to him very directly and clearly. So this is very nuanced. I don't have time to get into all of the nuances because this is like a fucking 2-hour long episode. Do you even remember everything that we talked about today? But I feel like this was so good. So let me just wrap it all up and we're going to put it in a pretty beautiful bow. I have a connection with a man. I think that man is going to marry me. I'm not saying tomorrow. I'm not saying next week. But something inside of me, which is very intuitive and very on point and very brilliant and very bright, something inside of me tells me that I'm probably going to marry the guy in Italy. And yeah, that's just what I feel. And I've been forgiving him on a deeper level and willing to let go of his previous mistakes because I understand where he's coming from and I understand where I'm coming from and I understand how I've grown And I have an understanding of how he's grown. I have an understanding of how he will continue to grow. I have an understanding of the direction that both of us are moving in our lives. I believe us to be moving in the same direction. In my heart, he is the only guy that I want. So that's where I am. And I still maintain that I'm open. I honor how I feel. I honor my intuition. And at no point do I drop into desperation surrounding this connection. Because what I always know to be true remains. I was always built to have an amazing love relationship. I was always going to be married. I was always going to be a wife. I was always going to be a mother. I just told you, I'm the perfect Black mom. It's inside of me. It's in my DNA. Because I ripped men's head off. Hello? I'm joking, but you understand what I'm saying. I know what I know. And I trust myself. And I also trust him on a soul level, just based on my intuition. My intuition, which is damn good. My intuition, which is spot on. My intuition, which really, really does not fucking miss, okay? I've been trusting myself a lot more. But that's the conversation, okay? There are checks and balances within a family, within a relationship, within a connection. Sometimes letting the guy go and walking away from the relationship is not the right check or balance. In other relationships and connections that I've had, like the guy with the incident, abso-fucking-lutely. There was no, because he's like a narcissistic, psychopathic, whatever, there was no amount of me screaming and cussing and yelling that was going to change that dynamic. I also didn't have harmony with his ancestors. His ancestors did not fuck with me at all, which makes sense. It wasn't a personal thing. It was just this bitch is gonna ruin your fucking career, which his career deserved to be ruined anyway. So that was a connection. Absolutely, you needed to walk away from that. There is no salvaging that. There is no making it better. There is no healing it. No. I don't have time to talk about all of the reasons why I feel that way, but just the answer is no. The guy from the incident, he was going through his Saturn return, and the way that he chose and committed to a lack of integrity, it was oh, that's a cycle he's going to continue living out for the next 30 fucking years, until his next fucking Saturn return when his ass is fucking 60. You know what I'm saying? And I am not going to enter into a fucking 30-year cycle with his ass. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we don't need to talk about it anymore. The point is, that was something that just needed to be walked away from. He did get checked. His ass did get fucking balanced. Amen. And that was actually, that was a mixture of so many things. We don't have time to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. The point is, there's an intuition inside of you that's speaking. There's something inside of you that's communicating to you how you should best navigate this connection, your relationships, your love life. And I think you can trust that within your relationship, within your connection. There's certain checks and balances. We don't live in a fucking cookie cutter perfect world. Unfortunately, this is not a fucking Disney movie. We do not all live in a world where The relationship between me and my husband, me and my soulmate, was that he was a boy and I was a girl. Can I make it any more obvious? We started dating and then we got married. And I just knew he was the one because it was so easy. I'm not saying that's real. I'm not saying that's not admirable. I'm saying maybe all of us don't have a story like that. Because of our families, because of like our ancestral karma. And I don't mean karma like your ancestors fucked up and so you have to live a fucked up life. I don't mean that. I just mean the natural consequences of our family lines and how we have done relationships up until now and how we have managed or ignored or suppressed our emotions up until now and how we have behaved dysfunctionally in relationships up until now. Sometimes being the generational curse breaker means you're going to have a life that looks a little bit messy and looks a little bit fucked up. And it's okay if it doesn't look perfect to other people. Can you create safety and security from there? I understand how we got here to this present moment, but what are we going to do about it? What is the solution? How do we make it better? How do we make it healthy? How do we make it safe? How do we make it secure? How do we commit to being an example, a better example for future generations? And that's where I am with this guy in this connection, but also in general, like in everything in my life. Instead of saying it has to look like this, it has to be perfect in this way, I'm giving myself grace. I understand why things will be fucked up in my money and my business and how much I allow myself to receive and save and stack up and invest, like all this shit. Like, I understand anybody who had my life experience, who had my ancestral fucking lineage, would be living this shit out right now. It's okay. I understand how we got here, and I believe that we can create better. I believe in solutions. Let's focus on the solutions instead of beating ourselves up for living out the natural consequences of our lives and our families' lives. Let's just do better. Forgiveness is key because we're fighting something bigger. You can forgive the guy for fucking up. You can forgive the guy for making a mistake. And at the same exact time, in that same exact breath, you can be the woman inside of you. You can be the mother inside of you, the Black mom inside of you, or the Latina mother with the chancla inside of you. There can be a woman inside of you in alignment with your culture, okay? Don't be a white lady listening to this going around saying there's a Black mom inside of me and Matthew's told me that I have it. Don't do that. Don't do that. In alignment with your culture. There's a powerful woman and a powerful warrior, like feminine archetype inside of you, available to you. Honor that. Sometimes you have to be willing and available to like check a man and to like teach him. And I'm not saying that it's only women doing this and not men doing this in relationships. Like, think about Beyonce and her song and the cover that she did of Jolene. In the song, she says, I raised that man and I raised his kids. What does that mean? She raised that man, but he's 11 years older than her. And he was still on some childish, immature Peter Pan bullshit when they got together. And she checked his ass in the way that only a Mars-ruled woman can. Beyonce is an Aries rising and a Scorpio moon. I know the energy very well. She checked his ass in a way that only a Black mother can. And whatever that looked like literally is her and her family's business. And he grew the fuck up. And then in another video from like the early 2000s or something, it's like Beyonce's like 26th birthday. And she's like giving a toast. Is it her birthday or his birthday? I think it's her birthday, but they're like on a yacht. I don't know why I think they're on a yacht, but they're like somewhere like having dinner or something. And she's talking about Jay-Z and she's like, you taught me how to be a woman. And that can mean so many different things. It's not my business to speculate or to tell you what I think it means, but the point is that I'm learning is that sometimes in relationships, you're growing alongside each other and you're teaching one another and you're supporting one another and you are parenting one another in community. And while sometimes the consequences from your mistakes might not feel good to you, it's still going to be safer and not as harsh as if it was coming from a world that doesn't see you or respect you or value you or love you. And in that way it becomes sacred. There's a sacred checks and balances that's happening within family and within culture and within relationships. And you can honor that, and you can honor that journey and that experience, and you can let go of that woke, that too woke agenda that says anything less than perfection has got to go. Because I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe in once you've made a mistake, you're done and you can never come back. I don't believe in that. I'm an abolitionist. And I can't just be an abolitionist politically. I have to be an abolitionist in community. And if I want to serve and I want to be a leader who has compassion towards other people, I believe that I need to practice that in my relationships and let people grow before me and let people be new people and let people be better people. This relationship and this connection and this guy has taught me so much about that. About relationships and compassion and forgiveness and healing. And regardless of what happens, I'm grateful for that. And that's it. This is a fucking 2-hour podcast episode. If you listen to this all 2 fucking hours, you need to if you're listening to this on YouTube, you have to comment, or you have to email me, or you have to DM me, and you have to tell me what your thoughts are, because I want to hear it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm not going to argue with anyone about anything, because I don't do that. This is not a Socratic seminar. This is my platform, and this is what I think. And if you disagree, that's okay. And in this particular instance, I'm open to hearing about it, but I don't want to convince anybody to feel anything or to think anything or to whatever. But if you want to give me your feedback and tell me what you liked, tell me what you took away, tell me what helped you, what supported you, did it give you epiphanies? Talk to me. I'm available. I love you, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.